Alright, so repairing a flat tire on a bike. As you can see, we have a bike and a flat tire. Not something you want to have when you're about halfway down the trail, but it's going to happen. So just have the bike flipped upside down, so obviously the wheels are easy to access. Make sure when you do this on a trail that you find a nice and even spot to do it on, so as you're halfway through the fix process, your bike isn't constantly falling over every time you touch it and frustrating the crap out of you. So another thing I like to do is to make sure that the rear derailleur is all the way into the lowest gear. This way it becomes a little easier to pop off that tire or that wheel. So we're there. Now, things that you want to have with you every single time you go out on a bike ride, whether you're with your buddies or not, whether it's a busy day and there's other people on the trail or not, always have an extra tube, obviously. Have at least one of these bars, tire bars. It's nice to have two just in case one breaks on you, or sometimes it's just easier to get that tire off the wheel when you have two of these guys with you. And obviously a small hand pump. Don't really need much. I mean, obviously the smaller ones are going to take a little more pumping, burn a little more calories. The larger ones will go a little faster, but at least have one small one on you at all times. So, alright, getting the wheel off the bike. Just going to pop it off right here. Obviously loosen it up. Grabbing this wheel, avoid grabbing it or touching it. Touching the rotor, the brake rotor with your hands. You don't want to get any oil on there, obviously. You're going to keep that clean. Just going to loosen it up. I'm going to just bring this piece right here back. Get the chain out of the way. Pop it out. And then just kind of work it off from there. And your wheel is off. So on to the next step is we want to get this tire off of here, get the tube out. Obviously this is going to be only steps for replacing a tube tire, not a tubeless tire, but this is a pinch of flat situation. It's probably going to be the most common flat you're going to have out on the trails, especially if you ride here in the mountains. You're not going to get more things puncturing your tires, more pinching the actual tube inside. So just want to work this loose, and hopefully the camera's catching this. You only need to take one edge of the tire off to get the tube out. So work the one edge loose just like this so the tube is accessible. I'm going to pop this off. This is a pressed valve, which is going to be the most common one you're going to find on at least a mountain bike. Sometimes you can still have the straighter valves, but they're a little more straightforward. So put that somewhere where you're not going to lose it. And then just work this nipple out and then take out the tube. And obviously finding a puncture is not very important. Most pinch flat situations, you're just going to have a nice little tear in the tube somewhere where the actual tire ends up pinching and tearing a nice little hole inside the tube. You tend to lose your air very quickly in here. Here it is. In some cases, actually, this is probably one of those cases where the impact was strong enough to where actually one of the spokes, the wheel kind of bends, and one of these spokes is going to come through. It's going to come down through here and actually put a hole inside the tube. So that seems to be the case here. I'm going to get the old one out of the way. The new one goes back in kind of the same way. Let me try to angle this down a little more. I'll pop off that. Those two pieces aside. Let's see, where's our, there it is. So just kind of work the tube inside the tire. Pop it through. And you can put the nut on right away. Just keep that in place. You don't have to tighten it all the way down right away, but just work the tube in there. Try to make sure it's nice and even, and it's not so much bent up and wrinkled in there. So this way when you go to inflate it, you don't end up pinching it again. Alright, so once that's on there, you can start working the tire back on. And again, trying to make sure you don't pinch the tube in between the tire bead and the wheel itself. Just make sure it's all nice and worked in there. It's a pretty straightforward process. Sometimes what will happen is in this area you're going to end up pinching the tube with the tire beads. So try to work this out loose in there. Have it loose, kind of pop it in there so it pushes the tube back into the actual tire itself, and it's nowhere near the edges here. So once that's on there, you can use your hand pump. Now obviously that's going to take longer. I just have an actual foot pump here, so a floor pump, sorry. You're going to want to unscrew this this top part here on the straighter, or sorry, the press to valves. And then just kind of work this on there. As far as the pressure you're gonna put in there, I mean, everyone's gonna be different with everyone, but it's probably not good. Not really sure what's going on with the pump there, but alright. So once you got enough pressure, I didn't inflate it all the way to where it needs to be, but you pop that off of there. Screw this nipple back on there. That will keep the air in the tube. And screw the nut down to where the neck here is nice and flat, nice and even. And then we can pop the actual cap on there, and back onto the bike we go. Again, try to avoid touching the actual brake calipers and getting them contaminated with whatever may be on your hands. Pop that right back in there. Kind of help hold this back a little bit. It's on a spring, so very carefully work that rotor down between those calipers. It's probably the most frustrating part. So once that's in place, make sure the wheel spins. Everything's nice and even. Screw that down. So that's screwed down. Just kind of work the tire on there. gonna be good to go. Obviously it's not on there straight enough, that's why you hear that caliper, or sorry, the rotor actually rubbing up against the brake pads, but that's just an adjustment could be made. And spin your pedals after you get on, just to make sure it pops right into the same gear that you had it in before you took the tire off or the wheel off. This way when you get back on the bike, you're not grinding through gears. And that about covers it.